Wrestling is a dangerous sport. Anything can happen. Though it may look scripted, real tragedies sometimes occur, leading to the loss of wrestlers' lives. Here we present 13 wrestlers who tragically passed away in the ring in front of their fans. Before we continue, comment below if you've ever watched any of these incidents live. Gary Albright. On January 7, 2000, during a World Extreme Wrestling event in Pennsylvania, Gary Albright collapsed in the ring after taking a bulldog maneuver from his opponent, Lucifer Grimm. At first, no one realized anything was wrong. The crowd and even fellow wrestlers believed Albright was selling the move, a common practice in wrestling to make a move appear more devastating. However, as he remained motionless, concern quickly grew. When officials and medical personnel entered the ring, they found that Albright was unresponsive. Despite immediate efforts to revive him, Albright was pronounced dead shortly after being removed from the ring. It was later determined that the cause of death was a fatal heart attack, not the wrestling move itself. His enlarged heart, severely blocked coronary arteries, and diabetes had put him at high risk for such an event. His health issues had gone largely unnoticed in the ring, as he had spent years competing in high-impact, physically demanding matches, particularly in Japan's shoot-style wrestling promotions, such as UWF International and All Japan Pro Wrestling. A former amateur wrestling state champion, Albright was known for his raw power and technical ability. His wrestling style mimicked real combat, making him a respected figure in the industry. However, his intense career and underlying health problems ultimately led to his tragic in-ring death at just 38 years old. Owen Hart.
Owen Hart has died. Owen Hart has tragically died from that accident here tonight.
On May 23, 1999, Owen Hart was set to make a grand entrance at WWF's Over the Edge pay-per-view in Kansas City's Kemper Arena. As part of his comedic Blue Blazer superhero gimmick, he was to be lowered from the rafters into the ring via a quick-release harness system designed to detach easily for a dramatic landing. However, something went terribly wrong. While 78 feet above the ring, the mechanism unexpectedly released, sending Hart plummeting to the mat below. Hart struck the top rope chest first before landing on his back in the ring. The fall was witnessed by over 16,000 fans, though it was not shown on live television. Many in the audience initially believed it was part of the show. Even the referee in the ring at the time, Jim Corderas, later recalled feeling something brush past his shoulder, not realizing at that moment it was Hart falling.
Tragedy befell the World Wrestling Federation and all of us. Owen Hart was set to make an entrance from the ceiling, and he fell from the ceiling.
Paramedics rushed in, but the impact had caused severe internal injuries, and Hart was pronounced dead at the hospital. Commentator Jim Ross later had the heartbreaking task of announcing his death to the live audience.
Unfortunate responsibility to let everyone know that Owen Hart has died. Owen Hart has tragically died from that accident.
In the aftermath, Owen's widow, Martha Hart, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the WWF, arguing that negligence in the rigging system had led to his death. The lawsuit was eventually settled for $18 million, though Martha remained vocal about her belief that the case should have gone to trial. Owen Hart was just 34 years old. Plum Mariko.
After the powerbomb, Mariko lost and never recovered. She was pronounced dead shortly after being taken to the hospital.
On August 15, 1997, Plum Mariko made history for the most tragic reason. She became the first professional wrestler in Japan to die from in-ring injuries. The female wrestling star, known for her skill and resilience, had suffered numerous concussions throughout her career. Despite warnings from doctors, she continued to compete, a decision that would ultimately lead to her death. That night in Hiroshima, Mariko faced Mayumi Ozaki in what appeared to be a routine match. During the bout, Ozaki executed a Liger bomb, a high-impact powerbomb move. Immediately after the impact, Mariko lost consciousness and never woke up.
Where she took a power bump, which is a move that involves being lifted and slammed down onto the mat.
At first, officials and spectators assumed she was simply selling the move, but as she remained motionless, it became clear something was wrong. Paramedics rushed to the ring, but it was too late. An abscess in Mariko's brain, likely caused by her history of head trauma, had ruptured upon impact, leading to her death. Her passing shocked the Japanese wrestling community, as the industry had never experienced an in-ring fatality before. The tragedy brought renewed attention to wrestler safety, particularly regarding head injuries and the long-term effects of repeated concussions. Mariko was only 29 years old. Though gone too soon, her story remains a sobering reminder of the risks of professional wrestling and the importance of protecting athletes from repeated head trauma. Larry Moondog Spot.
Many of you may have heard already, two Tennessee wrestling legends have passed away last week.
On November 29, 2003, Larry Moondog Spot Booker collapsed in the middle of a concession stand brawl match during a Memphis wrestling event honoring Jerry the King Lawler.
Joey Rossi and Moondog Spot, aka Larry Booker.
The match featured multiple tag teams, including the latest version of the Moondogs, but what started as a chaotic brawl quickly turned into a real-life tragedy. According to Moondog's manager April Pennington, everything seemed normal until Booker suddenly asked for a belt to use as a weapon, then collapsed. Initially, the other wrestlers and the audience assumed he was selling an injury, but when his partner, Moondog Puppy Love, realized something was seriously wrong, the match quickly ended.
You're also going to see some matches with Tojo Yamamoto. You're going to see Joey Rossi in some matches.
Despite immediate attempts to revive him, Booker was unresponsive. He was rushed to the hospital, but CPR efforts failed, and he was pronounced dead at age 51. The cause of death was determined to be a heart attack. Booker was a veteran of the industry, known for his wild, hardcore wrestling style. Before becoming Moondog Spot, he wrestled under the name Larry Latham, competing in Memphis wrestling in the WWF. He became a member of the Moondogs after Moondog King left the company, teaming with Moondog Rex in the early 1980s. The team gained notoriety for their brutal, brawling style, which helped define hardcore wrestling. Pero Aguayo Jr. On March 21, 2015, Pero Aguayo Jr. stepped into the ring for what would tragically be his final match. The Mexican wrestling star teamed up with Monique to take on Rey Mysterio Jr. and Extreme Tiger in a high-profile tag team match in Tijuana, Mexico. Known for his fearless style, Aguayo was one of Lucha Libre's biggest stars, but on that night, a routine move turned deadly. During the match, Rey Mysterio delivered a flying dropkick intended to set Aguayo up for his signature 619 finishing move. However, upon impact, Aguayo slumped forward into the ropes and remained there, seemingly unconscious. At first, neither the referee nor the other wrestlers realized the severity of the situation. The match continued for nearly 2 minutes before anyone noticed that Aguayo was completely unresponsive. Medical personnel rushed to the ring, but it was too late. Aguayo had suffered a broken neck, leading to a cervical stroke that triggered a fatal heart attack. He was pronounced dead shortly after being transported to the hospital. The tragedy deeply affected Rey Mysterio, who unknowingly played a part in his friend's untimely death. However, Aguayo's family held no blame toward him and even asked Mysterio to serve as a pallbearer at Aguayo's funeral. Masakazu Fukuda.
Brings the wrestlers to the ring, first wrestler to the ring, and also brings back to the ring your referee for this contest from Tokyo.
On April 10, 2000, Masakazu Fukuda tragically passed away at just 27 years old after suffering a fatal head injury during a New Japan Pro Wrestling, NJPW, Young Lion Cup tournament match against Katsuyori Shibata. The promising young wrestler, known for his time in Wrestle Association R, WAR, and NJPW, was seen as a rising star in the Japanese wrestling scene. During the match, Fukuda took a diving elbow drop and soon after began showing signs of distress. Moments later, he collapsed in the ring, completely unresponsive. Initially, officials and fans assumed he was selling the move, but as concern grew, medical staff rushed to his aid, and he was immediately transported to a hospital in Kusenema, Miyagi. Doctors diagnosed Fukuda with a brain hemorrhage, likely caused by undetected pre-existing trauma combined with the impact of the match. Despite efforts to save him, he never regained consciousness and passed away the next day. Mitsuharu Misawa. On June 13, 2009, Mitsuharu Misawa, one of Japan's most legendary professional wrestlers, collapsed in the ring during a pro wrestling Noah tag team match in Hiroshima, Japan. The 46-year-old was teaming with Go Shiozaki against Akitoshi Saito and Bison Smith when he took a back suplex from Saito. Immediately after impact, Misawa stopped moving and lost consciousness in the ring. Medical personnel rushed in as a stunned audience watched in silence. CPR was administered for several minutes before Misawa was rushed to the hospital, but he was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. Though no official cause of death was publicly released, reports indicated that the impact of the suplex caused severe cervical spinal trauma, leading to cardiac arrest. Misawa's death was a devastating moment for the Japanese wrestling community. As a multiple-time champion in All Japan Pro Wrestling, AJPW, and the founder of Pro Wrestling Noah, he was one of the most respected and accomplished wrestlers in history. Known for his hard-hitting style and dangerous bumps, he had taken years of brutal punishment, which likely contributed to his fatal injury. Cesar Silver King Baron. On May 11, 2019, Cesar Silver King Baron, a legendary Mexican luchador, collapsed mid-match during a lucha libre event in London, England. The 51-year-old was competing against Juventud Guerrera at an event billed as the greatest show of lucha libre when tragedy struck. During the match, Silver King suddenly fell to the mat. At first, he managed to get back on his feet, but soon collapsed again. Guerrera, unaware of the severity of the situation, continued with the match. Even after securing the pinfall victory, no immediate medical help arrived, and it took over 2.5 minutes for anyone to realize Silver King was unresponsive. It was later determined that he had suffered a fatal heart attack. His son later stated that Silver King had been healthy and drug-free leading up to the match, making his sudden collapse even more shocking. Eyewitnesses at the event criticized the lack of trained medical personnel, questioning whether quicker intervention could have saved his life. As one witness recalled, it was odd that no medics rushed up. It didn't seem like anyone was on hand. Wrestlers then came out and started giving him CPR. Beyond wrestling, Silver King was known for his role as Ramses in the 2006 film Nacho Libre, where he played the villain opposite Jack Black. His unexpected passing sent shockwaves through the wrestling world, highlighting the need for proper medical preparedness at live events. Brian Ong. On May 28, 2001, Brian Ong tragically lost his life during a training session at All Pro Wrestling, APW, in Hayward, California. The 27-year-old was training with the Great Khali, then known as Dalip Singh Rana, when a botched flapjack maneuver resulted in fatal injuries. Ong had already been suffering from a concussion before the session even began. Under normal safety protocols, he should not have been allowed to continue training. However, APW staff failed to intervene, putting him at greater risk. When the flapjack move was executed, Ong failed to follow proper safety measures and held onto Khali's shirt instead of landing correctly. As a result, he landed hard on his head and tailbone, causing severe spinal trauma. Rather than receiving immediate medical attention, Ong's condition was not treated with urgency, which only worsened the situation. He was pronounced dead shortly afterward. His cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, which led to brain injuries. Khali was not held responsible for the accident, as it was determined that Ong's pre-existing concussion and lack of proper training gear contributed to the tragedy. However, APW faced legal repercussions. Ong's family sued the promotion for negligence, arguing that he should not have been allowed to train while injured. The court ruled in favor of the Ong family, and APW was ordered to pay a $1.5 million settlement. Emiko Kato. On March 31, 1999, Emiko Kato, a 23-year-old Japanese professional wrestler, collapsed in the ring during a tag team match for the Arsion promotion. Just 2 months into her career, Kato was still in the early stages of her wrestling journey when tragedy struck. During the match, Kato suffered a severe head injury after taking a powerful blow. At first, no one realized the gravity of the situation, as wrestling often involves hard impacts. However, when she failed to regain consciousness, officials rushed to her aid. She was immediately transported to a hospital in Kusenuma, Miyagi, where doctors diagnosed her with massive intracerebral bleeding. Despite medical efforts, Kato never woke up and tragically passed away on April 9, 1999. Her death was only the second recorded in-ring fatality in Japanese wrestling history, sending shockwaves through the Yoshi community. Just a month before, Kato had made her debut at Tokyo's Korakuen Hall, wrestling in front of 1,550 fans. Her career, though brief, showed immense promise, making her untimely passing all the more heartbreaking. King Kong Kirk. On August 23, 1987, King Kong Kirk, a well-known British professional wrestler, collapsed in the ring during a match in Great Yarmouth, England. The 350-pound heavyweight was competing against Big Daddy, one of the most popular wrestlers in the UK at the time, in what was supposed to be a routine match. However, the bout ended in tragedy when Kirk became unresponsive mid-match. During the closing moments of the contest, Big Daddy delivered his signature finishing move, a running belly splash, and went for the pin. But something was seriously wrong. As the referee counted to 3, Kirk did not kick out or move. Spectators initially believed he was selling the move, but it soon became clear that he was in distress. Medical personnel rushed to the ring, but despite their efforts, Kirk was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. An autopsy later revealed that he had suffered a fatal heart attack, likely triggered by the physical stress of the match. Big Daddy was not at fault. The incident haunted him for the rest of his life, and he later expressed deep sorrow over Kirk's death. Wrestling is a dangerous business, and it can prove to be fatal inside the squared circle too, as these pro wrestlers' stories tragically illustrate. Sometimes one wrong move is all it takes to turn a normal sparring match into a heartbreaking tragedy. Oro, Jesus Javier Hernandez Silva. On October 26, 1993, Oro, a rising star in Mexican lucha libre, tragically passed away at just 21 years old after suffering a fatal in-ring accident during a 6-man tag team match in Mexico City. A member of the famed Hernandez wrestling family, Oro was known for his graceful aerial moves and dramatic in-ring storytelling. On that night, he had planned to take a head-first bump to make a move look more devastating. However, something went terribly wrong. During the match, Oro took a routine clothesline from his opponent and performed an exaggerated spin, landing hard on his head. Initially, no one realized how severe the impact was. One of his opponents attempted to pick him up, but Oro suddenly collapsed on the mat. He was quickly placed on a stretcher, but he never made it to the hospital alive. Doctors later confirmed that the fall had triggered a brain aneurysm, causing instant fatal trauma. His untimely death devastated the lucha libre community, as he was considered one of the most promising young wrestlers in Mexico. Larry Cameron. On December 13, 1993, Larry Cameron, a powerhouse professional wrestler and former American football player, collapsed mid-match and died of a heart attack during a Catch Wrestling Association (CWA) event in Bremen, Germany. The 41-year-old wrestler, known for his impressive physique and strength, was competing against Tony St. Clair when the tragic incident occurred. In the middle of the match, Cameron suddenly clutched his chest and fell to the mat. At first, spectators and officials believed it was part of the performance, but when Cameron remained motionless, it became clear something was seriously wrong. Medical personnel rushed into the ring and attempted CPR, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. An autopsy later revealed that Cameron had suffered a massive heart attack, likely due to underlying heart issues. Before his wrestling career, Cameron was a promising American football player, even signing with the Denver Broncos in the NFL, but an injury ended his football aspirations. He transitioned to wrestling in the 1980s, where he became a dominant force in Stampede Wrestling, run by the Hart family, and later wrestled in Japan and Europe.